Okay, just a second. Okay, that's our site. If you just want to like say your name and our site and your movie, feel free to use that F word as much as you want.
See, I never swear. Welcome to goldenwild.com. I hope you like In Bruges, and thanks for watching.
Thanks.
Oh, are you staying?
Yes.
Oh, I thought you were finished.
Hi,
I'll get over here.
I'm Martin. Nice to meet you.
I have my front.
Nice to meet you.
Wow, this is scary. Like a board meeting.
So who are we gonna fire next?
What?
Who are we gonna fire next?
We've never fired anyone.
That's great. It was fun last night. You never know what kind of questions you'll get, right?
Oh right, yeah. Were you there last night?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's kind of nice. It was like that's the third one I've done, and it's probably the friendliest one too. Everyone's questions seemed like they were coming from a good place, and yeah, no hard ones.
There have been unfriendly questions.
What?
There have been unfriendly questions.
Yeah, there was one or two in Minneapolis, not terrible ones, but there's a couple of older guys who kind of just hated the violence and didn't understand why. Why all the violence was pretty much the question. So, trying to explore despair and redemption and guilt and things. And,
That doesn't represent most of the people.
no.
That's my hometown.
Oh, right. I wasn't trying to. No, there's only like one or two people, but the rest were kind of behind it too.
About the violence, Six Shooter was more, not almost cartoonish in certain ways. The blood spurting out, and this was a lot more graphic. How do you decide how to portray violence?
It completely depends on the story, but the whole basis of this was the place I was trying to explore was just the horror of violence in this, and how ugly it is, and what happens when you're forced to deal with, when a hit goes wrong. How do you deal with the horror of that? So, but if you're going to show the violence, I think you should show it as dark and bloody and evil as I think it is. So that was what I was just trying to capture in this. In Six Shooter, yeah, it was a little bit more. I was still trying to keep it kind of real, but a little bit more of the Sam Peckinpah type of slow motion kind of thing, But then I think Sam Peckinpah usually deals with it in the kind of quite smart and intelligent and horrible way, but I think he's kind of but truthful about it too. I think that's his whole point with Wild Bunch, was to show how ugly and bloody and horrific it is.
It originally was not written for Irish. The fellows were supposed to be from London.
Yeah, originally those guys were London, like Rafe's character was. But once we got the possibility of casting Brendan and Colin, I thought I didn't want those two guys playing London when it was such an easy switch from London to Irish. At first it took me a while to think, was it an easy switch? But then I got them to read through it as the script stood, and we only had to change like literally 20 words or so. Because I think working class London is quite similar to working class Dublin. It's only when you get to the posher folks that the differences in the idiom arises. Yeah.
So Rafe was excited because he had never been asked to hold a gun and then fell.
Yeah. He was he was running around like a little kid when he got to it. But it's like the first day, it was like he was very method about it and said, "Well, how would I do this?" and blah blah. It was getting really intensely into it. After the first take, it was just no questions. Just wanted to shoot and shoot and shoot. But he's a great. We know he's a great actor. He brought on a tremendous amount of intensity to the part, I guess, but also he hasn't really done comedy before, I don't think, so or a character that's so kind of working class. But with that character, I kind of wanted to cast against type a little bit, to have someone who hadn't done that 100 times before, and I think he really adds that to the film. He brings the comedy, but he brings the darkness and the intensity of the man he is, I guess, to it.
Was it a homage to the third man, bringing him in so late?
I think that was one of the things I ripped off.
Okay.
I'm sure there was. I'm sure there was a whole bunch of other ones. Yeah, no, I think it was just kind of interesting to have just his voice pop up, and from the note, and then on the phone, and then not see him for the first hour. Yeah,
Like that.
yeah,
I mean, yeah, that stuns people to have it be him.
yeah. I think that's cool because we don't have the credits up at the start. So if you don't know who's in it when you're going to see it, then hopefully that should be a nice surprise.
I didn't know who it was, but I thought it was Michael Caine. It sounded a lot
Oh,
like him
right.
at first.
Cool.
So why'd you pick Bruges for like a central location?
Well, I went there on like a weekend vacation. I was staying in the thing last night, just to. I heard it was a pretty town. I didn't really know anything about it, but it's only like 2.5 hours away on the train from London. And I was walking around and just stunned by how beautiful it was, beautiful, but dark and brooding and sort of medieval and gothic too, especially at night time. And I just thought, wow, it's never been used on a film before, as far as I knew. So wouldn't it be cool to have this place as a character in a film? And then, so I went to all the churches and the museums and all that stuff, and then in the middle of the second day I just was bored out of my head and just wanted to get drunk and whatever. And that just became the two characters in my head, the one who appreciated the culture and the churches, and the other side that wanting to get drunk and meet women, which became the Colin Farrell character, obviously. And then I thought, why would two people be there when they didn't have to be there? Then I thought hitmen, and they've been sent there to escape a horrible situation. But just having it was kind of like to set up the fish out of water, stock kind of hitman situation, but then take it to a whole different place as well. So you're going in thinking, oh, it's just two guys who hate Bruges. But then after like the first 15 or 20 minutes, when the revelation of what's happened to them comes up, to bring the story to a whole different, darker place. A sadder place, I think, probably.
Well, like you were saying, Bruges is a great place to film. I mean, in terms of the fact that it really hasn't been used before, but you really make an effort to kind of incorporate it as a definite character in the film. I mean, it's I mean, you take advantage of the locations, certainly.
Very much. I mean, every single location that we used in the film was written into the original script. There was only one place that we weren't allowed to film in, and that was just it was a church, and we were allowed to film in a different church, which worked actually just as well. But yeah, I wanted it to be very organic. I wanted Bruges to be like a fully fleshed character in the film, who we see it in every shot. It's kind of palpable, and especially at night, there's a darkness to it and a brooding quality to it too. So yeah, I wanted to, and I guess I went back to. I tried to think of all the films that had a town as a character. I think Don't Look Now was probably one of the biggest influences in that regard, with Venice as the dark, brooding, palpable character. But then things like the Prisoner TV series had a very strong sense of place. It's a little village in Wales. So yeah, that was kind of the thinking behind that too.
Do you think people there are going to have a good enough sense of humor to like be made fun of?
I hope so. I was worried about that until like 2 weeks ago, because they were really great to us and let us film everywhere, and so I didn't want them to think that I was taking the piss out of them. So I wanted to push all that onto Colin. He's making it, he's improvising the whole movie. But we showed it to the mayor's office and the tourist board and all of the Belgians who'd worked on the film literally 2 or 3 weeks ago, and they all loved it and were behind it. Their main thing was to, we said, do you want to read the script? And they said, no, all we care about is that you show Bruges in a American feature film, because their whole thing is based on, their whole economy in some ways is based on tourism. So just having like a hour-and-a-half long feature film that shows how beautiful the place is kind of what they were after. And like everyone who's seen the film, like a whole bunch of people said, I just want to go to Bruges. So they don't really believe the Colin Farrell character, because they know what a crackpot he is. But I think Bruges does come across as a beautiful place to visit. So
Now, you'd worked with Brendan Gleeson before. Had you worked with any of the other cast members before at all?
No, I'd met Colin just socially once, and I'd met Rafe after a play once. Just one, the Canadian who gets punched in the bar. I'd worked with him on a play before, no, Brendan was the only one I'd.
He was in The Pillow Man on Broadway.
Yeah,
Is that right?
yeah, he's a very good actor, Željko.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about Sharon? Is it Hines? Who?
Kieran,
Kieran.
had we worked? No, I'd known him for years, Kieran, but and a couple of times on Broadway he was in a play, and we were in a play just down the street, but we hadn't actually worked together. But I'm sure we will, either on stage or film again.
What made you think of him for that particular part?
I just wanted a really good actor and an Irish actor, I think, and I mean, he was very small. I didn't think he'd do it when we offered it to him. And it was probably even bigger originally. So, but yeah, you always want the best actors in each part, and usually someone of that kind of stature wouldn't do something that small. But I think he knew me and liked Colin and Brendan, and wanted to do something with them too. So I think that's why he did it.
Is it the case that you always wanted to direct film, even when you were putting out award-winning plays, one after another?
Pretty much, yeah. It was my first love, really. I didn't really know anything about theatre when I was a kid. I only had a love of films, but I just kind of fell into this kind of treadmill, I guess, of putting plays out. And I got to enjoy it very much, but it wasn't anything I was ever brought up with or ever knew about. Film was always that. So I always had in my head the idea to even just make one film and just leave it at that, just to see if I could. And I've done that now, and I'm not sure if I'm going to leave it. I actually thought it would be much more of a horrible, difficult process than it actually turned out to be. I thought there'd be a lot more, notes from the producers and a lot more people who wanted to change the script or the tone. And I thought working with the actors would be a lot harder than it was, but it turned out to be. I realised that I had learnt a lot from all the plays. I'd always been in rehearsal. I'd never directed a play before, but I'd always been in the rehearsal rooms and always been talking to the actors. And so I realised we had 3 weeks of rehearsals for this, and I realised that I had learnt a lot from back then. I like actors a lot, and I kind of know what their process is about, and I know how to talk about the script a little bit. Not as a director even, but just as a writer. But that's what I kind of kept the film about in some ways, not being a dictator as a director, but just being kind of truthful to the lines, always sticking to it, always not letting that be changed. Good and kind of arrogant as a writer in that way, not so much as a director. I don't really know what the hell I'm talking about as a director, but as a writer, I think if you've got a good line, a good script, stick to it. But the boys are all very much behind that. I think they respected the writing and just wanted to capture what was on the page, which was great, which is kind of unusual, I guess, in a bunch of Hollywood stars, But there's none of that starry changing lines for the sake of changing lines.
As a beginning director, really, how heavily do you depend on your technical crew, the cinematographer, the DP?
Probably, 6 months beforehand, I'd watched the DP. I'd watched lots of his work and met him and a couple of other people, but like him a lot as a guy, and thought he had the perfect kind of cinematic eye for this, and the production designer. Everyone was like about 6 months in, so we had like a good period of pre-production on it. Yeah, made a lot of trips to Bruges.
Did the fact that this was your first directorial effort, did that impact the financing at all? I mean, because it doesn't. I mean, it seemed like you got a pretty generous budget, a pretty generous shooting schedule. For an independent film of this sort.
Yeah, the budget was great. There wasn't any. I think after they saw the short film, they kind of felt confident that I could do it. And this is before the Oscar thing came up too. It was just on the basis of, because the short is actually quite long for a short. It's almost half an hour long. So and that was on quite a tight budget. So no, they were behind that. They were very happy that I wanted to go with the cast that I wanted to go with. That always helps the studio give you some more money.
Right.
But no, behind it from the start. I think they knew my theatre work too, and they knew I'd been around for a long time. So
So this film within the film that they were doing, was it a short film? Was it a feature?
I
Was
think
it-
I think I should have thought more about it before I filmed it. I think it's a feature. It seems, we were just talking earlier, but it seems like some kind of European David Lynch kind of effort. Yeah.
Okay.
So maybe I'll go back and write that. And
Okay.
but yeah, with the dwarves and the Bosch figures,
Yeah, the
it's
Bosch.
yeah. But yeah, no, I didn't put too much. I was busy with other things.
So is winning the Oscar, did that change you personally or professionally at all? Or?
I don't think so, really. I mean, it just, the whole thing seemed so strange, and I mean, it was fun. It was weird, but it didn't really. You know, you just go back home and write another stupid play or write another film, and it doesn't really affect you on it. Sometimes you wake up in the morning and go in your kitchen and there's an Oscar there, and that's kind of cool. But certainly you don't ever make a short thinking that you'll get an Oscar, and you know, it's just weird. It's nice, but it's weird.
So you keep it in your kitchen?
Yeah. Yeah.
So does that mean that the future is going to have a sort of a combination of films and plays for you then? Is that what
I think so. I'm going to take a while before I make another film, I think, but I've got a couple of scripts that are ready to go. But I kind of just want to take a little break because it's been sort of 2 years straight on the writing and making of this. Yeah, so I'm going to just go away and travel and grow up, and if I can, and I will write a play, I think, this year, which it might not have on for a while, but that's the game plan. Then maybe in like a year or two think about this other film that I've got banging around, which I think I kind of like the script more than this, but it was always a bigger canvas in lots of ways. I wrote this one specifically to keep it small and keep the cast as kind of tight and keep it all in one place and not to have too many flights of fancy visually, I guess. But now with this next one, if I go ahead and do it, it's a bigger thing to get my head around. But I feel like I've learned enough from this to make that step, maybe. Yeah.
How did you decide not to include a lot of exposition or backstories? I said you told us that you got rid of a lot of backstory. How did you make that decision?
I mean, we shot a lot of it and cut it together. And sometimes I guess when you're editing a film, the film starts coming alive, and the film starts telling its own story, and the story that it told was pretty much the through line of the two guys sitting there, the call coming through, the rejection of the call, and the impetus of Rafe coming. The backstory kind of started coming. It was written to come up, so just before Rafe was coming, we learn more about him and more about him and Brendan's character and the wife and the death of the wife and all that honor and debt. But it just kind of slowed down the whole impetus of Harry coming through. And if it was anywhere earlier in the film, it kind of hurt the relationship between Colin and Brendan. So you just make choices of, is it a 2.5-hour film that, tells you every single thing about these people, or do you try to leave it a little more sketched in slightly, and just carry on the through line of what the thrust of the story is about? So it was in the editing that we lost that stuff.
Did you have the same kind of process when you would put on a first performance of one of your plays, that you would edit the script along the way too, or during rehearsals?
No, because even with the plays, always kind of stuck to, this goes back to the arrogance of the writer, always stuck to the script exactly, and really never added a word. In the previews and all that, it was more about tone and delivery, and timing and pauses and things like that, rather than ever changing the script itself. And it's pretty much the same way in here. We had 3 weeks of rehearsals before we started shooting the film, and pretty much that was just me and Brendan and Colin in a room, going through the script as you would in a play, talking about backstory and why every line was there, you know, discussing whether or not it was the right line for that place. But they were, Brendan and Colin and Rafe too, when he came on board, had some kind of respect for the script that, you know, I don't know if they always have it. You would expect sometimes, you know, a Hollywood star to come in and throw their weight around and change things up, but they were kind of humble about lots of that stuff. I'd known Brendan for a long time anyway, so he knew my plays, and his son actually had worked on one of my plays in London and New York, and he'd seen them all, so he had that respect. And I don't know if Colin got that from Brendan or if he had it anyway. He loved the script from day one, and he, you know, just wanted to do it as soon as he read it. So he had that respect. So there was never any argument actually or fight about sticking to what we had. You know, I would always be I'd always listen and be open to it. But again, I've you know, if I've been sitting with a script for 2 years, I've pretty much decided that these are the right lines for every single scene and every single character. So, but they respected that completely.
How does your experience with Colin compared to what the media might say about him as a Hollywood bad boy?
Yeah, most sweetest guy, kind of shyest guy, nicest person, nurturing. He helped me completely as a first-time filmmaker. I mean, they stood up. They always asked me, are the producers on my back? You know, do I need any help? Great. You know, I couldn't have worked with nicer, non-starry people ever. You know, he was always professional, always on time. None of those. I mean, I like all those cool, sexy stories about him, but I never saw that side of it at all. Also, there's not a lot to do in Bruges.
It reminded us.
You guys were there for 7.5 weeks, you said?
7.5 weeks plus like the 3 weeks of rehearsal. So yeah, it's pretty much 3 months plus. I pretty much stuck there the whole time. You know, I mean, London wasn't too far away, but there wasn't really time to go back and forth. You know.
So you guys know the pubs really well.
Yeah, and it was the Irish World Cup the World Cup with Ireland playing was on like every couple of days, so we spent a lot of time in the Irish pubs.
So there's about 40 minutes that are missing from or that were cut from the film. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean literally, I guess when it comes out on DVD, I think it would look like 25 or so, but because some of those like just trims of ends of scene which add up to 40, but of actual scenes, there's probably 25 minutes worth of backstory and other things,
So
and just dumb scenes that should never have been filmed in the first place.
So there will be a longer cut on DVD?
Not a longer cut,
Oh.
but you know the deleted scenes and that kind of stuff will be there. But no, I mean this is exactly the film that I wanted to. Always hate that kind of director's cut coming out, you know, 6 months later. When you think, why don't you just fight for it when it was, you know, fight the company when it was coming out in the first place. So yeah.
Were there any purely physical problems during the shooting on location, like getting a camera up that narrow staircase where that guy had so much trouble getting
No, because a couple of the places were sets that we had to build. So the top of the staircase is actually a set, and the stairs are a set too. So we were able to pull the sides of the walls out. No, I mean, actually, it all just added to the fun of it. Like filming in the boat, going around the canals was great fun. It's just great to be in control of the waterways and to see all these beautiful places from a stranger position. No, I mean the drop from the tower was a cool kind of shot that took ages to set up. We had the massive crane actually up the side of the tower and dropped that a few times in the dead of night. But no, it's all. I mean, the town's people and the mayor's office were brilliant about that. They just let us shoot everywhere, so that was cool.
What's the population of Bruges?
I'm not sure
Is it
exactly.
very large?
It's well, the old town itself is kind of in the centre, and it's maybe 50,000 people there. I'm not sure. It's not big. There are more in the kind of suburbs area, but as a tourist or as a visitor, you don't really see those spots. You know, you're pretty much stuck around the middle, sort of mile and a half of Bruges, probably 2 miles square. But yeah, it's a beautiful place. I'd go back
So do the
if they let me.
Do the locals view the Americans and Canadians as obnoxious?
No, not as far as I know. That's just me. No, it's not me either, but it's just Ray. No, I mean everything is based on tourism there, so they've got to appreciate, you know, the people coming through.
The overweight family.
Yeah, exactly.
The overweight family were Americans, weren't they?
They're all actually English.
Oh, they were. They were
Yeah.
acting.
Go figure. Yeah.
How did you approach them about that scene, doing that scene?
You mean, was it a delicate kind of? Well, they're kind of cast to have to play that
Yeah.
part. You know, there's written overweight American,
Mhm.
so it wasn't like Carl, and you're gonna have to be overweight in the scene, doing like a De Niro kind of thing. Well, maybe I should. But they're fine. I mean, it was kind of tricky for that little chase bit. We did that like 7 times, and at the end, the last time, Colin said to me, "Man, I know you want to get it one more time, but this guy's going to die." It was literally, it's like he was so out of breath. It was sad that, you know, he's you know, I guess he doesn't get too much exercise. But it was, you know, they knew that they were there for that, you know, and like anything, you just concentrate on getting the lines truthful, you know. So it wasn't. I mean, the setup is that it's kind of a gag, but if you're getting the lines truthful, and they appreciate that and respect that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you sort of playfully mocking a lot of different, you know, sort of groups of people.
Yeah,
You know,
every-
obviously the dwarves get, you know, plenty of that treatment as
A
well.
little bit, but at the same time, I guess even with the Americans, you kind of there is elements of mockery, but also as with the dwarf character we were talking earlier, you also want to set up a fully rounded character, you know, and I wanted to explore that whole idea of what if you're a good actor who happens to be a dwarf who has to do these crap parts all the time, the munchkins and the elves, and where would that send your head? You know, how would you live? And you'd live on drugs with lots of hookers in his. But it was to create as well-rounded a dwarf part as I've seen, you know, in the movies. But still, you know, he's got to contend with Colin Farrell's character, who mocks everything. But he's mocking everything because he's desperate and he wants to die, basically, you know. So, yeah. So, I mean, I hope there won't be too many dwarf protests or picket lines outside the film, because like, you know,
War between the black dwarfs and the white dwarfs.
Yeah, because also, so you create him as like a decent actor, but then make him a racist too. Which is, no, I hope none of the groups we've offended will be too offended.
Well, that actor had played Howard the Duck.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
I
exactly.
guess that's about right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Has this opened overseas at all yet?
No, this is going to be America's the first place it's going to be. Yeah. I think we're going to be in Ireland in about a couple of weeks' time for, obviously the boys are Irish, so that could be a fun kind of night. And then in the UK, not until April, and the rest of Europe not until April or later. So we'll see how it goes here first.
And the test screenings have gone really well here in the States.
Yeah, great. Apart from Minneapolis. No, even that was great too. I mean, some people are just not going to like it because it's violent and it's got a strange sensibility too. But I'd say like 80% of the audience we've had in have gone for it, because it is a strange, you know, you can't quite define it as a comedy or just as a drama or just as a shoot 'em up. You know, it's got elements of all those things, and I think goes to a stranger place. So it'll be interesting to see how it's taken. It'll be fun, I hope.
Did you find the same kind of reaction to your plays, which also had this mixture of styles and elements?
Yeah, I mean, it took a while to have audience know that what they were getting into. So I mean, probably 5 or 6 plays, you know. But even the first one had very strong elements of the darkness and the comedy going hand in hand. I think if you get the comedy as well as you can, then people accept it. You know, it doesn't matter if you go out thinking what was that exactly, as long as you liked what that was. You know, you don't have to define exactly what it is. But it might take like a film or two to see if that's like a new form of some kind of oeuvre. We'll see.
So you had 4 productions going on at once?
Yeah, in London, yeah.
Wow. How
Yeah.
did you do that?
Well, there was one was like a trilogy of obviously 3 plays, but and then there was another theatre company doing another new play at the same time. So it just kind of lucked out that way. Yeah, that was about 10 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah, it was fun though.
Yeah. And you don't have any plays coming up? No?
Someone mentioned that the Pillar Man might be here in a bit. I'm not sure, but I think there's something on in Euston now or next month. The Lieutenant Vinishmore. So Texas-wide, there's a couple of things going on, but I haven't gotten to see anything in Texas yet. I'd like to. Sometimes I like to just pop into strange places I haven't been before. Not strange. I'm not saying Houston's strange, but
It's okay,
just
it's strange.
but just to travel around and see someone's take on it, who don't come from the place you're from, but seeing if they get it right or they share the sensibility. It's kind of interesting.
Have you walked in on a production that was just terrible though? That made you cringe?
I saw an amateur production in London that I had to leave, but kind of you forgive them.
They were trying.
Yeah, exactly. No, the worst one was one I was actually kind of involved in, but the director kind of cut me out of the process early on. That wasn't the best of times. But no, I mean, I've popped into things like in Japan. They've done the plays actually in Japanese, and was surprised that they got it so right. You know, they just did it truthfully and darkly and comedically, and it was strange that someone who doesn't share your language could get it so much more right than someone who does. You know, in New York, it's interesting. Anything else I can bore you with?
Is there anything else from the DVD we can expect to see on there?
There's some fun little outtakes and comedy moments. I mean, Colin and Brendan are like the two funniest guys you'll ever meet. I think that kind of comes across even in the darker moments in the film, that they kind of love each other and had a great time on it. But yeah, there are some nice little funny bits that'll be out. So yeah.
Was a behind-the-scenes featurette filmed at the same time, so we can actually see you working?
There is some of that. I remember not talking to them deliberately because I was kind of busy. But yeah, there'll be some of that stuff. Yeah, and I think Colin and Brendan spoke to them a little bit. Yeah.
You intend doing an audio commentary?
No, don't really believe in that stuff.
No.
Yeah.
The work just stands for itself.
Yeah. I'm a kind of Terrence Malick was always one of my heroes, so I appreciate his take on discussing work. Don't.
So you must love doing these kinds of interviews.
It's for real. Actually, I mean, once you get into them, it's kind of fun, you know. I mean, there haven't been any kind of harsh questions. No one's really hated it yet. So, I mean, I find that a little bit more tricky. But it's just kind of interesting going around the country and listening to other people's point of view, and just, you know, you don't really get to talk to this many Americans in one kind of 2-week period of time. So it's cool. I'm kind of enjoying that side of it more than the promotion or just talking and learning. It's kind of, just as a writer, it's kind of cool.
Do you come to the U.S. frequently, or?
Yeah, I mean, mostly New York, really, because that's where all the plays kind of started, and I've got a lot of friends there. But yeah, I mean, over the years, I kind of been back and forth. I lived with a girlfriend in Austin for a couple of months, and was writing down there, and I've travelled a bit to Phoenix and well, New Mexico and Arizona and places, driving around, and bits of California, but all over. Like, kind of like it.
Do you like Austin?
Yeah, very much. Yeah, it's a cool place.
Good time.
Yeah,
But you still live in London.
yeah, yeah. Cool.
Some people, like Americans, they can't stomach a film that doesn't have a clear ending. Like that lady asked last night, asked a question. Do you get that asked that a lot?
There's a few people kind of have that reaction, but I've always liked films that kind of go that way, because you can kind of watch them again, hopefully, if it's not quite specified. Kind of like the end of Taxi Driver was kind of that, you know, you don't, is he going to go on, is he going to kill more people, and that kind of thing. And but
It's more interesting.
exactly, it leaves it up to you to decide. So yeah, that's where I was coming from with that. Cool.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you guys, that's great.
Can you say a plug for our site?
You sure?